A musician, composer, and educator with a profound dedication to jazz and its cultural heritage, Christopher Brown has an unparalleled ability to blend artistry with business philosophy. From playing with legends like Wynton Marsalis and Roy Hargrove to leading innovative bands that challenge the boundaries of jazz, Christopher's career reflects a relentless pursuit of excellence. With accolades from Downbeat magazine to his contributions as an educator, Christopher is a testament to jazz as both art and life philosophy. So join us as we explore his journey through music and leadership. Chris, good to see you.
Dude, it's been a long time, buddy.
It's been a very long time.
Yeah.
Chris, we met let's say 15 or so years ago in the great state of New Jersey. Now, New Jersey has such a great music scene as far, especially in the New Brunswick area with Rutgers. So when coming up around that time, up to this day, you've had a lot of people who mentored you. Is there someone in particular that really shaped, you know, your outlook on music and playing, still to this day?
Yeah, I'd probably say it's well, geez. Yeah, I mean there's been a number of them, but I would probably say that the voice that's the loudest in my head is probably Ralph Peterson, I would imagine. Just because I spent so much time with him. Even though he was only there from, let's see, I started Rutgers in January of 20, or I'm sorry, January 2000, and then he left, I think, after the end of my junior year, I want to say. So just a quick, like, 3 years. But in that 3 years, I spent as much time around him as I could possibly get. And yeah, he's just, he helped me to realize that there was a lot more strategy involved in great performances than I assumed, right? I guess I kind of was working with the assumption that I don't know, there's some mystical portal of data that comes down from the sky that helps you to make great musical choices. And, he helped me to realize, and I'll kind of sum it up this way, that you got to have a system. And I love that acronym, that system, or I love the way you can turn the word system into an acronym, which stands for save yourself some time, energy, and money. Because the
Wow.
point of having
So
a system is so you can be consistent, right? And that's the reason why we pay people, why we pay surgeons a lot of money because we expect them to be consistent every single time. So there has to be a system in place that creates kind of like guardrails or guiding principles that help them to kind of take a lot of the unnecessary guesswork out of what they're doing. So that's
does
what I
time, yeah,
got from
does
Ralph.
time management take a big, is that a big part of it as well?
Yeah, it's a full well, I guess you're talking about time management as in like time management or like
No, the actual time, like the number of hours.
Um, yeah, like they say that, or actually a friend of mine, she likes to say this, the more we prepare, the less we need to repair. The more we prepare, the less we need to repair.
No, I love it. And
Um,
Ralph was a master drummer, composer, and rest his soul. And you got to
mhm.
spend a lot of time with him. When you were around him, did it feel like I'm in almost like in the company of a legend, or was it more of did you have a friendship with him too? How was that
Oh,
relationship?
absolutely. Yeah, he definitely was big on closing the gap because he wanted you to learn. So it's kind of tough to learn when there's this kind of thing there. But I mean, I don't know. But then again, also I've seen people who used to study with him that it kind of felt like maybe they felt they were on the same level. And so that kind of created a weird, I don't know, felt like a distraction in the sense of like, I don't know, like just a lot of posturing, you
In other
know?
words, you're saying he had some students who didn't check their ego at the door?
Yeah, for sure. And I remember seeing that a couple times going, huh, that's interesting. Uh, and as a result, they didn't really receive the information the way they could. It's like you gotta keep that valve open. And so that has to do with how you obviously make people feel in a conversation, so that way the information can get through. So
Well, Ralph was certainly such a extraordinary voice, and no one sounded like him. You
that's
have
right.
Yeah, you have a your own voice on the instrument as well. We've gotten to work together a little bit, and you're still, I'm sure, working on your craft to this day.
Mhm.
You obviously have a certain sound that you want to go for. You have these influences, Ralph, and I know Jeff Tain Watts is also an influence as well. What point did you start to feel that I'm starting to really sound like myself and I'm not so much, um, trying to replicate someone else? Did you have a certain point where that happened?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, actually. And I think the answer to that is really just leaning into fundamentals, right? I'm at a stage now where I think style is grossly overrated, very overpriced. Because when I get hired to play something or when I get hired to play for someone, the first order is that I'm functional, right? If I happen to have a style that you think is identifiable with me, fantastic. But that shouldn't be my focus. My focus should be, am I functional? Am I playing the music right? And so I say style is for me where function is for we.
Hmm. Okay.
And it ends up being like a gamble, right? If you go, this is my thing, I have to do my thing this way. It's like, well, there's no one size fit all. You have to be flexible to whatever the situation calls for. Here's a perfect example. I remember years ago, I think they're still around. What was the soul food joint that was in New Brunswick? It was uh
Deltas?
Deltas, yes, Deltas. And I remember Ralph Bone called me to do an Oregon trio hit there. And it was supposed to be me, him, and Jared Gold on Oregon. And Jared apparently told him that he couldn't make the gig, but this was like 2 months prior when Ralph asked me. And so Ralph forgot. So me and Ralph were there. Ralph's like, what the hell? Like this guy's always like he's super on time. And he's looking at his phone and he's texting him. He's not responding. He's calling him, not responding. He's looking at his website on his phone. He's like, his website hadn't been updated in a while. He was like, maybe he thought maybe he might have double booked himself. And Ralph, he's like, he's thinking, and then he remembers, he goes, oh, that's right. I forgot that he said he couldn't make the gig. So now we're stranded, right? So I go, let me call Kenny Davis because I knew Kenny Davis lived down the street. Luckily for us, he just got back in town like 2 hours prior, maybe an hour prior, from Europe with a Chris Bodie. So he goes, obviously I can't make the first set, but I can clean myself up and get there for the second set. So the point of the story is now it's me and Ralph, and we're two people, saxophone and drums, and we got to somehow sound like we ain't two people,
And let me
right?
just provide a little context for Deltas is a very large space. It's got very high ceilings,
Mhm.
multi levels, a big drinking crowd. So it's probably going to be a big challenge. I'm sure you're thinking about it.
For sure. That's right. Because there's people like there was a seating area that's like behind where the band used to be, and there's a big long room and there's this upper level. And so I remember going, okay, so how am I going to navigate this? And I go, well, I'll just feather the bass drum slightly louder than I normally do to compensate for the fact that you don't see a low end, which of course then obviously forced Ralph's hand to have to play more chord tones for his solo. And I remember kind of playing and going, okay, I'm clearly handcuffed with what I can do because I've allocated my feet to doing a particular thing. But then when the bass player showed up, then Ralph could be a little more exploratory, and then I could now change the function of my bass drum. I just remember like reflecting on myself in that moment, going, "Good job for making an adult decision."
Oh man,
Because
that's
I
so
played
funny. That's
less than
great.
what I would normally play. But I was like, that was a smart choice to make. And I remember Ralph, he noted it, and I was like, yeah, I feel like I just recognized that I leveled up here in my like maturity.
So you're in it's in those situations that can make you uncomfortable that force you to rise. Yeah.
Right. And you go, all right, so how am I going to react to this? And there's a great book called what is it? It is Atomic Habits. And the thesis of this book says that nobody rises to the level of their desires or expectations, but you fall to your level of competency or systems.
it's so important that we have to find our own way to play.
Hmm.
And I think it's something that's overlooked. And you certainly have found a way to do it. Stay true to yourself and stay true to the artists who have influenced you in the music. That being said, you've worked with some great people. You just named two of, you know, the best jazz musicians around, Kenny Davis, Ralph Bowen, and Jared Gold. These are people you've worked with before. And you've worked with some other great people, which I named in the beginning, Wynton, Roy Hargrove. If you could assemble your own band, but it could be anybody, it could even go back and people who have passed away or something, who would be in your quartet or quintet? Can you tell me you think?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I guess maybe Kenny Kirkland on piano, Robert Hurst or Christian McBride on bass, Ralph Bowen on saxophone, Freddie Hubbard, uh, Kenny Garrett. So kind of like it's a sextet, but kind of like Art Blakey 3.0 or something like that. I don't know,
Yeah, that's a dangerous band. A lot of fun, I'm sure you would have. What would you play?
Um, I don't know. I think it would be fun to just like explore concepts with these guys because they're all such deep thinkers. And it's like, okay, well, this is what's been done. Here's what we can do. And based upon the personalities that we have on stage in this band, what do we think is our could be an interesting lane for us to explore. So I think it'd be fun to just kind of ideate with that group of individuals and see what we come up with.
No,
You
that's
know,
that, that's a great band.
and like my thought, I guess maybe the reason why I say that is the philosophy I have with my own band is I'm never interested in a perfect ceiling. It's like a perfect performance. I'm only interested in a perfect floor, right? Because if you think about it, if you have a perfect performance, that's it. You might as well call it quits. Right? Like you can't out perfect perfect. The best you can do is just duplicate what you did before. But if you have a perfect floor, then I think it gives space and room for forgiveness, right? Because like this is the reason why we baby proof a house. You're like, I want the kid to stretch out and explore things and potentially get hurt, but not die in the process of this exploration, right? And I find that like when what you're focused on is just making sure that things are functional, then if something doesn't go right after that, you you laugh it off. But I think there's people who like they want to micromanage. It's like it has to be perfect, perfect, perfect. But even then, like once you get past a certain point, the only people who recognize that level of perfection is just that person.
Right. I mean, it took me 20 years. I finally learned to let go because it doesn't serve you on any level.
Yeah.
Maybe when you're coming up to
Yeah.
critique yourself that way.
For sure. But it's about knowing what's worth tracking, right? Because a lot of people, I think they end up tracking the wrong things. They track the wrong endpoints. Like there's this woman named Dr. Gabrielle Lyons. She goes, nobody's over fat. You're just under muscled,
Hmm.
right? Like those are two different strategies. I'm trying to cut fat or I'm trying to lose muscle, right? And if you increase your actual muscle mass, the byproduct of that is that you will lose weight, right? And so yeah, I guess I kind of think of it that way, if that makes
No,
sense.
that's great. And let me ask you this. You have performed at some of these wonderful venues all over the country, internationally. What do you tell yourself before you go on stage? Do you have like a mantra or do you like to have the sticks and just kind of warm up? How does that like walk me through that
Oh, yeah.
preparation?
Um, so I'm a huge leadership buff. I love John Maxwell, John C. Maxwell. I have a bunch of his books. And one of the things he talks about is walking slowly through the crowd, right? So what that means is you're able to gain rapport with the people in the audience before you have to actually play in front of them.
Mm.
And so once you do that early, then when you get on stage, then you're playing to a room full of of familiar faces, right? And in fact, that rapport is like creating that floor, right? And so now you can get away with making little funny jokes and banter with the crowd because you're like, I just had a conversation with you. You know what I mean? But when you don't do that, and then the first time people are seeing you, you have to realize like there's a mental processing that's taking place where they're trying to figure out if they want to like you, right? And then you're trying to I'm trying to gain rapport with you from across the street, basically, right? And so I find that like a lot of the nerves go away. And yeah, a lot of the nerves go away because my thoughts about other people's perception of me was informed by a high touch situation,
Mm.
opposed to like I've got the story in my head of like, why is this person looking at me funny? I don't know. Do I have something on my shirt, right? And it's like those are all distracting thoughts. And so I try to make sure that I get to a place early enough so I get my sound dialed in, get my drums right. So get my drums dialed in for that room. I have enough space to kind of like mentally detox from um, whatever may have happened earlier in the day that's it's not relevant to what I'm about to do. And so it's like, all right, we're here. I'm ready to play. Now, let me just go out and start shaking some hands, right? And man, just to walk onto the stage with that kind of balanced mind and body and posture, man, it's everything. It's why I get up every single day, and I stretch my body. Even if I don't feel like it, I still do the same exact thing every single day for that exact reason.
Do you do acupressure? I'm just curious.
Mm-mm.
Ever.
I drink a bottle of water and then I stretch my entire body and then I do a big ab workout, and then maybe run a couple of miles on the treadmill and then I start my day.
Wow. Yeah, you're definitely disciplined in that sense, and that's probably why you've had this longevity because so many people burn out and become unhealthy. You really have to be mentally healthy, physically healthy to travel. People forget it. Even just going away for one night, and people don't understand what that does to the body, just all the traveling. Um, and that being said, you've got we talked about New Brunswick. We're talking about your mentors and the way you look at the audience when you want to play. You're in a different stage in your life now. Maybe you're a little bit older. I'm sure your definition of success has changed in 15 years since we met. So what's your definition of success November of 2024?
My definition of success is related to kind of uh, the biggest idea is related to sustainability, right? It's kind of like they say there is no success without succession, right? So that's obviously a long play idea. And so for me, it's being able to do more of what I want, less of what I don't want to do. Um, and a lot of it has to do with continuing to grow the way I want to as an artist without it compromising my health. That's why I do those other things,
Mhm.
right? Because I say we musicians, we're low impact athletes for life. And so if we're gonna do this forever, we have to treat our bodies like athletes. And so I've got little things that I do where I'm able to assess the amount of inflammation that's in my body. Like if you ever see me doing this, sugar manifests itself. I track it here. I can feel my hands are stiff, which means I need to go to the bathroom, right?
Mhm.
I need to make sure I'm drinking enough water. I know that if I have to go play at a particular hour, like my dietary regimen needs to be a certain kind of way. Again, you simply treat your body like an athlete. Like you wouldn't go and just smash Burger King or McDonald's right before you go on the tennis court if you're a professional tennis player, you know? And yeah, so my definition is being able to live, being able to make enough money to pursue the things that I want to be able to pursue, but not at the expense of my health.
You haven't aged, I'm telling you. I'm seeing you. I mean, it's pretty funny. But no, but I think what you're saying is, I think you're totally right. And for some reason, the jazz culture is affiliated with the opposite. but we're in 2024.
Yeah, it's funny because I often have conversations about this with people about what you just got through saying. And I think perhaps a lot of people have maybe gotten it wrong a little bit when it comes to substance abuse and us being musicians. I think we see substance abuse as being a manifestation of some kind of degraded moral compass. When really, I think it's probably better to look at it through the lens of performance enhancers. So no different than like maybe an athlete takes steroids or something like that, right? Because I remember the first saxophone gig that I ever did in New York with some heavy cats too. It was um I won't say the names, but I was at a rehearsal and everyone's talking about their drug of choice. And I was like, this is really interesting. And they weren't talking about it like, like some sophomore, like, oh, we got, messed up last night. It was like, I do this because it gets the job done. I take this because it gets the job done. This job done. This job done. And it was like someone talking about how like, I like kale as opposed to
Yeah.
spinach leaves, and I go to Whole Foods for this because it gets the job done. And I was like, oh, they're only saying this because they're ignorant when it comes to health and nutrition. And if they knew of a safer, cheaper alternative, they would do that.
Are we
But
talking
because
about pharmaceuticals, recreational drugs, alcohol, like, or all of the above?
no, illegal drugs.
Oh, illegal. Okay.
Yeah, right. And so they're like, I do cocaine, blah blah blah, gets the job done, or I do this. I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And it's like, only reason why you do that is because you know that your value is recalibrated after every gig, right? And so when you trade hours for dollars, the moment you can't trade that time for money, you don't get the money, right? So as a result, you're like, I don't want to leave anything to chance, especially when the money gets higher and your livelihood is dependent upon it. So you're like, I got to do this just so I can survive. If I knew of a cheaper, more sustainable way of doing it, I would go and get some celery, but I don't know enough about how the human body works because I've invested all my time in learning how to play music, right? And it's like that's fine, but at the end of the day, if you didn't play your instrument, no one gives a fuck, right? What matters is that you're able to. Here's the thing. I say that we all have the same mechanical job in life, which is to extend the health span of your life. And as a consequence, you'll extend your actual lifespan, right? So, what's that mean? It means simply this, going back to foundation, your floor. You're prioritizing sleep, exercise, hydration, and nutrition. That's it. No more, no less. But here's the thing though, no one develops their body like that on accident. That requires planning. So you're orienting your day. There's a system in place for you to be able to do that. So to me, instead of trying to work in health around your work, flip it and figure out how to work your work around your health.
Yeah, I know when you give it this much attention, you definitely are gonna benefit later in life. And like I was saying, you still look the same to me.
Hmm.
Chris, let's talk a little bit about the saxophone because I'm just gonna provide a little context for everybody, which is one time you and I we ran into each other in the city. I was actually thinking about this a couple days ago as I prepared for this interview. We ran into each other in the city and then we ended up going to Fat Cat together. And you had your horn with you and went to the jam session. I don't think you knew the tune, but you just sat and listened for maybe a couple choruses and then took a solo. Now, that's no easy task. It's something that a lot of musicians want to understand a little bit more, that the mystery of ear training. Can you walk us through a little bit of that if that's okay?
Sure. I play piano as well. And
Mhm.
so because I play as much piano as I do, not that I'm considering myself to be super killing, but I can definitely get around, right? And so I guess it's just, I don't know, it's years of just having an experience of playing through songs and watching myself play certain things and associating certain shapes with certain sounds. And so if I close my eyes and I hear those same shapes, or yeah, I hear those same, shapes, if you will. And then I go, oh, this must be kind of like this thing that I already know, right? And so I think it's just me being over familiar with harmony. And so then I'm just able to apply it to the saxophone.
You have to understand harmony in order to really truly train your ear.
Yeah.
It's not just about the melody.
No, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's one of those things where it's just oversaturating your brain with a thing, right? So
Hmm.
that way you increase your your response rate. Like one of the things that Ralph Bowen used to always tell me, he was like, really the whole goal is to figure out how to shorten the distance between thought and action. Because if you could literally play whatever you heard, there'd be no need to know music theory. Right? Like music theory is the art of talking about music, right? Music is the art of playing music. So I spent a
No,
lot of time playing music.
no, you're certainly a testament to someone, to someone to say, how do I get from point A to point B, from becoming an amateur player to becoming a professional. And you've performed a lot. We even talked, we just talked about you playing the saxophone at Fat Cat at a jam session, and these performances we do are full of surprises. Can you recall anything when you were leading? Because I know you've led your own band, and you like when Ralph called you for the other thing, it was maybe his gig. What about when you're playing with your band, when someone you hired has totally thrown you off in a way that led the performance going to another level? Anything come to mind?
So you mean like in the negative way? Is that you mean?
No, in the positive
Oh,
way. Like
or
let's say, like something caught you off guard, but taught you something in the process, maybe with your own band that you assembled.
oh, I guess maybe the only thing I can think of is, and this is more of a leadership perspective. I had to learn a while ago to adopt the idea that no one is ever going to learn your music the way you want to learn your music, right? It's kind of like employees will never care about a business owner's business to the same degree that the business owner cares about their business.
Hmm.
And so, like I would send stuff and cats they wouldn't learn it, to a certain level or just not even look at it.
Until
And
the
I,
gig.
right. And I go, huh, okay, so let me change my leadership strategy. And so now instead of giving cats a bunch of hard ass charts that they have to sight read because they're probably not going to take the time to really to look at it because they got other things that they have to focus on in life. Let me make sure that like I really think about who's going to be on the bandstand, send them charts early enough, but also send it in a way where the instructions are so clear that you could sight read it on the bandstand if you needed to. And I think that's been like a huge thing for me because the audience doesn't know, nor do they care if you're a pickup band or not. They just want you to sound like a band,
They want to
right?
hear good music.
Good music, right? And good music doesn't mean challenging. It just means good. It means it sounds together. It's there's a cohesive sound. And and I guess just like, years of cats sending me challenging music like the night before the gig, I'm like, what do you think? You get like a record date out of this? Like stupid, you know? And so yeah, me kind of getting burned early enough in those situations because I was, trying to be super hip, by sending someone like a really like challenging piece of music. I was like, nah, there's no need. There's no need.
Yeah. Well, you have there are those musicians you can who care so much about wanting to, if you do put in the time and it is challenging, they'll keep getting the phone call. So it is about work ethic too, I think.
Yeah, there's also something to be said for setting your people up for success too,
Hmm.
right? 'Cause sometimes a lot of cats they don't have their organizational systems together, and so like the gigs tomorrow, and then they send you the charts like a day or two before the gig, is if you don't have anything else to do in your life but to focus on their thing.
Yeah.
That's like, you told me about this gig 4 months ago. Like there's 4 months in there that you could have sent the stuff.
Yeah. No, Chris, you're such an inspiration, and I'm so glad I got a chance to work with you. So we're going back like 15, 16 years or something, but
Yeah.
I hope that when I'm on the West Coast, we'll get a chance to work together again. You're tremendous. Where can people find you as far as like website, social media, that sort of thing?
Yeah, my website's called Couture of Music, like fashion couture, couture of music. And you can also look up that same, I guess, handle on Instagram as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks so much, Chris.
Thank you.